Hey guys, welcome to the Equity Podcast. I'm Joe and this is Berek.
Hey.
Today our main topic is why do we focus on standards and full range of motion in the gym. After that we have some general frequently asked questions we're going to answer, and that'll be it for today.
The standards, I'm sure everybody's heard me be like, a little deeper, a little deeper.
I always move perfectly. I've never had you say that to me ever.
Yeah. So with that being said, we'd like to thank our sponsor today, Rogue Fitness. So obviously you come to the gym, you'll see their stuff everywhere. They've just been, they hopped into our community like right off the bat. A lot of it American-made stuff, and it's just high quality. It's going to last a long time. We've had our bars since we've opened. We've had our rigs since, like, all the equipment that we have, we've had since we had it. And if we ended up getting rid of it, it's because I was an idiot and figured out, oh crap, I don't need that thing. I want to get something else. So it's just high quality stuff. So if you're ever interested in finding something that's going to last a long time, check out the link in the comments and, get to work.
Yep. Okay. So our main topic today is focusing on standards and full range of motion in the gym. The first big reason we do that is that standards are measurable, they're observable, and they're repeatable.
Yeah. When we start working out, the goal is, a lot of times, it's to see improvements, to see results. You start the gym because you want to lose some weight, or you want to look a little better, whatever the reason is. But then when you start coming in, you start doing this stuff, you start, I back squatted last month. I wonder what it is I did, or I did this last month. Hey, we did a Fran, 6 months ago. I wonder what my time is now. And the reason that we like functional fitness and the CrossFit style of stuff is that we can measure exactly how much power output we're doing. We can measure how fast we're going, right? We're using the clock to measure that thing. It's observable. Like, we can see our progress throughout time.
Yep.
And then, so you bring all that together. In order to do all of that, you have to have standards. Mm-hmm. If your squat depth is different every single rep or every single workout, that's going to be a problem, because you're not going to get consistent results, right? If you're doing wall balls and half of them are at 9 feet, half of them are at 10, there's a few that just didn't touch the wall at all. You're not doing the same thing every time. So, we want to make sure that we're keeping those standards so that progress that we see over time isn't, random, right? We want to make sure that we're hitting that same thing. So, and it's also a very science and measured system to this, right? Observable, or measurable, observable, repeatable.
Yep.
Just like any hypothesis, right? We get to test if our program works every day. We get to test that, if your squat depth gets deeper over time, if your weight goes up, right? All that, the weight in the squat goes up, right? And if we maintain those standards and it goes up, we know we're doing something right.
Yep.
And then also on the other side of things, it's just, we want to make sure everybody's working with the same standards. We want to make sure that everybody's kind of doing the same thing. When you're working out in the same area, you're not necessarily competitive with the next person, but it's more fun when everybody's kind of doing the same thing.
Yep.
When somebody is doing something a little bit different, it can be a little weird. So, like, everybody using that same standard, crease step below top of the knee, full lockout of the elbow, and that's to the best of their ability. There's some people that can't lock out their elbows, or they have knee issues, and we modify that as needed. So just keeping everybody on a similar playing field. That's really what the standards are about.
Yep. The second point, and probably one of our biggest selling points as a gym, is that your life requires full range of motion, even outside of the gym. You're going to use your body to the fullest extent.
Yeah. Full range of motion is so important because we need to use it in our everyday life. And if you don't use that full range of motion, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. So maintaining that is super important, especially as we start to age. If you don't walk around, if you don't squat, it's going to be harder and harder to squat. And then, if you don't have that type of leg strength, that's when you stop being independent. If you stop, you need to use that range of motion. When we go overhead with a thruster or a wall ball, you need to put stuff on the top shelf. When you're in the kitchen, right? When you need to pick up that dog food off the floor, or you need to pick your kid up off the floor, right? You need to squat down and pick them up. You need to make sure your midline's engaged. We need to work that full range of motion, just so we can do whatever life throws at us. And that's why we do this. This is a supplement for life. What we do in the gym is supplemental to the life, so we can do whatever it is we want to do. The second piece is muscles and joints are made. They were built to. They evolved to work together, right? The knee doesn't work in isolation, right? It's not just the quads, the anterior part of your leg working. For that knee to work properly, it needs to use both the quads and the hamstrings, right? That's oversimplification of it, obviously, but it needs to use both sides. So when we do a leg extension, that might be really good for a rehab, like something super specific. But in general training, we want to make sure we're utilizing both the hamstring and the quad, and improve that entire muscle group to help support the joints for long-term health. And building those muscle groups are going to help you in the long run stay healthy and active. And like I said, they're meant to be used together in sync at the same time.
Our last point on this focuses on two words that, if you've been here long enough, you've probably had hammered into you repeatedly by Berek and other coaches. And those are integrity and virtuosity.
Yeah, so integrity is probably the one that people know us the most for, because another way to say integrity is to do the right thing, and that's like our first core value at Equity. But people probably know it as the kind of third way we kind of talk about it a lot is don't be a dick. And part of not being a dick is making sure that you're hitting the same standards as everybody else, right? You're doing the same number of reps as everybody else. You're doing what you need to do to make yourself better. And integrity, another way to put it, is doing the right thing, but doing the right thing regardless. It doesn't matter who's watching. You could be at home by yourself. You're still hitting that full range of motion. And if you miss the depth, or if you miss that wall ball, you don't count that rep, you redo it, right? And that's because we want to make sure we're hitting that full range of motion. We're hitting those standards. We're doing the right thing no matter what. And then the second part of that, virtuosity, that's something that comes right out of the manual, the CrossFit manual. But I've really, that's not, they didn't invent that, right? They borrowed it from somewhere else, and how they define it is doing the common uncommonly well. And you hear it time after time after time. You hear about these big professional athletes, the best of the best. What do they focus on? Fundamentals. Doing the small things really, really well. Doing the small things when it's hard. And it's very easy to just throw air squats underneath a rug and be like, oh, it's just an air squat, right? I want to do some weight. Well, if you have a bad air squat, you probably have a bad back squat. And you can always get a little bit better, right? So focusing on making the common things, the everyday things, uncommonly well is going to translate to success later on, right? The little things build up to big things. So one, it's the right thing to do, and also it's going to help you be better in the long run as well.
Don't go to a 400-pound squat without air squatting really, really well.
Yeah. Or if you do happen to get that, eventually something bad's going to happen, right?
That's true.
Like you can have a shitty squat and get really heavy, but eventually that shitty squat's going to catch up to you.
Yeah.
And something bad's going to happen.
So now moving on to our questions, we just have a few frequently asked questions that we get hit with often. Our first one is, how do I manage working out in the heat, which is very, very pertinent right now.
You stole the words out of my mouth. I was literally going to say the same thing. Obviously, it's super hot right now. With the whole COVID thing and all of our stuff, we're not having fans. There's just like no airflow.
I'm sweating sitting here.
It's hot. Like how do I manage that? And the answer is you just start doing it. That's kind of a cop out, but seriously, you have to start doing it. How do you get a better back squat? You back squat.
Yep.
Right? You do it more, you're going to start. Now this is where the next parallel comes, is you build up to it, right? Now on one hand, you're like, oh yeah, so I started 85 degrees, or like I started 80 degrees, then 85, then 90. It's like, no, what we need to control is our intensity.
Yep.
Right? So instead of thinking, oh man, I just got to go as hard as I can on this workout. Well, if it's 90 degrees and it's your first time working out in that kind of weather, maybe we just dial it back a little bit and decrease that intensity and just go a little bit slower than you normally would. Like you might be capable of more, but you're just not adapted to the heat yet.
And even if you do dial it back, the heat's going to make it suck just as much as going 100%.
It's still going to make
60.
it really hard. Yeah. I did 5 air squats and my shirt is saturated already.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that we're building up to it. And then as you get used to that heat, you can start building that intensity up and up. And it's, you adapt to it. There's people that train in Florida all the time and it's hot and humid there. They're doing fine. We can adapt to it over time as well. But that being said, be smart. If you start feeling woozy, really bring it down. Be smart about it. Make sure you have water. Make sure you're drinking before and after. Be smart when you're training in heat. And the sun just brings another level to that. If you're working out in the sun, you really need to just be careful and
don't
be
cook.
mindful. Yeah.
Second question we get asked a lot is, how do I get better at any given skill?
Yeah. So this one was kind of I am impressed that you weren't like, what skill do you mean, Berek? That was good. That's exactly how I meant that to be read.
I can read.
I know how to read.
Fuck you, Berek.
Double unders, pull-ups, toes bar, handstand push-ups. That's a lot of gymnastic movements. Even clean snatches. It doesn't matter what it is. The first question that you need to ask yourself is, do you have the capacity to do that thing? And capacity can mean strength, it can mean conditioning, it can mean whatever, but generally it's going to mean strength. Like for handstand push-ups, do you have the strength to actually push your body overhead? If you don't have that strength, it doesn't matter how much skill you have, you're not going to be able to do it. So you need to make sure you have the prereqs to do whatever skill it is, right? If you want to do a muscle up, well, you need to be able to do pull-ups first. You need to be able to do a ring dip first. But make sure we have the prereqs. Then what we need is evaluated practice. Not just practice. Practice doesn't help. Evaluated practice or mindful practice. You need to do the thing, but analyze that thing before and after. Right? So if I'm just doing pull-ups willy-nilly, I could be doing them completely backwards, and it's not going to help me in the long run. You need to be able to have some self-awareness, some self-reflection in that skill, and be a self-coach or set up a one-on-one session with one of the coaches so you can get feedback on that. It can't just be random. You need a focus line to get better at that skill. And then finally, the actual answer that I think what most people want. The first two are what really needs to happen, but the third part, what I think most people want to hear is like, okay, now how do I train it? And the answer is imams. That the imam was such, I don't know who came up with that concept, but it was genius. I think Rich is who made it popular.
Yeah.
When he was training, when he won the first two and they started following his training, he was doing imams like crazy. And what it lets you do is it lets you refine a skill while you're relatively fresh. Like there's a little bit of, like you're a little bit tired, but you're not just like middle of a workout exhausted.
Well, if you do a rich imam,
right.
workout exhausted.
It lets you build, that skill, to work that skill and rest.
Yeah.
And if you're just constantly tired, you're never going to be able to build that skill. Like you need to train, you need to practice the skill. And imams are the best way to do that. So an imam, is every minute on the minute. It doesn't have to be every minute on the minute. It could be every 2 minutes. It could be every 3 minutes, every 30 seconds. It doesn't matter. But there needs to be a period of work and then a period of rest. And you need to make sure that you're recovering in order to actually build that skill. It can't be something like a Tabata where Tabata is more about training, not practicing, because you're going really hard. Thanks, guy.
Let's wait for him to pass. I don't know if this will actually pick up. That'll be fun for me.
Keep it in. Oh, fun. You got a motorcycle driving by.
Did he just come into circle? What a dick. Yeah, staying in. Are you done with that one? Sorry, I lost track.
Yeah.
Third question is, how much protein should I eat?
With all nutrition questions, the answer is always, it depends.
Put this with all of our answers for everything.
Yeah, pretty much everything is it depends. I think, again, I'm going to tackle this one very similar to the previous one, where I'm going to give two answers that have nothing to do with the question, and then, or like not what people are looking for, and then
leave the bait at the end.
Actually answer the question. So the first one is make sure you're getting quality protein in. Processed meats just aren't great. Plant-based proteins are fine, but they're still processed, right? You have to process those proteins. So just make sure you're getting quality protein. The second one is we want to make sure we're hitting balanced meals for every meal, right? We're trying to hit 3 meals a day. I like to use the plate method. So, think of a plate, quarter of your plate is protein, a quarter of a starchy vegetable, and then half your plate is a non-starchy vegetable. So a quarter of your plate. The other method would be the hand method. So you have, open palm of vegetables. In your palm, cupped palm would be your fat, and then size of your fist would be your protein. That's another way to think of it. So just nice balanced meals. You can think of it that way. Now, if you want to get into like super specifics, this is what I think most people are asking, like on a macro level, how many grams should I be getting? In general, most of the time people are looking from somewhere between 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per body weight. So I am about 170 pounds, give or take if it's before the weekend or after the weekend. And so I would try to be getting about 170 grams of protein a day. And that's, with training relatively frequently. If you're not training as much, 1 to 2 days a week, that number could probably come down a little bit. Disclaimer, I'm not a nutritionist. If you want to find get some information from an actual nutritionist, that's something that you can find. But, if we're just working towards general health, that's where we can really help you guys out with our nutrition coaching. And it's just, that plate method is the way to do it for, we're looking for sustainable growth, sustainable fitness.
And just, you don't need a scale with you everywhere. As far as going with the plate method.
Yeah.
Or once
it's
you're
very
used,
easy to think about a plate in that method. Like you go to a restaurant and you look at your plate, you're like, well, that plate's not right. Just kind of adjust it a little bit and then take the rest, as a side, adjust it as you need to. and I'm not saying that macros are a bad thing, because they're not. A lot of people get a lot of great results with macros. I've done macros before, and I got great results. We've had members currently that are doing it that are doing awesome. But it's a level. Like, you don't want to be like going from not thinking about nutrition at all, and then going, well, I'm going to go into macros and dive right in, right? It should be something where it's a process. It's the intensity scale, like we were talking about with adapting to the heat, right? It's something that we want to build up to that, right? There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can fix before we get into that. So the plate method, the hand method is a great place to start. And then once you want to kind of hit that next level, that's when you can come and talk to us.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for listening or watching, guys. If you have any questions, please send them to info@equity.fitness or leave a comment on YouTube or wherever else you're seeing this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. Have a wonderful week.
Yeah, and don't forget full range of motion and standards.
Don't be a dick.
I'm on you. Keep going, guys.